All right, we'll get started here. A few more people might trickle in if they can make it through the throws room. Anybody check out the Adrenaline table? Adrenaline Fundraising. Got to do that. He's, again, they're a very good sponsor for us. I'm going to introduce Don Hood. And I don't know how many of you had a chance to read his bio. And, you know, if you're like me, you know, it seems like you get an email and stuff and it's reading it's optional. But I don't know that I've ever introduced a coach that has had such a broad range of success the whole way through. I think if there was anybody I could say that had the Midas touch, it looks like it's Don Hood. I looked at, you know, high school, college as a performer, and then from coaching small school, large school, small college to Division I, and then back. And I'll bet you anything, one thing he's not going to say, but I bet he's very proud of, is that when he was a college athlete, he made the dean's list 7 times and had the highest GPA on his track team a couple times. Now, I don't know, but I'm guessing if we're teachers, that's kind of important to us, to have an athlete like that. And so you have a combination of a person who is highly intelligent, but also worked very hard for what he's gotten academically, and then as an athlete, and then further with his professional career. So I am really anxious to have a high-level, big name like this coming up, but I'm most anxious just to hear his southern accent the rest of the time here today. So with that, I'll have Don Hood.
Well, thank y'all. I am really honored to be here. The educational part, I learned real early in life to sit next to smart people. And you can make better grades. Not really, I didn't cheat often. It is an honor to be here. I've been doing this a long time, and I'm really glad to see there's some gray-headed people in here that make me feel better, and younger people that make me feel really old. I turned 60 last week, and reality struck me. I thought, you know, I got about 10 or 12, 15 years left to do this, and then it's over. You know, for me, and I'm a brick in the wall or a name on a paper somewhere. And I thought, wow. And then I got this phone call to come up and speak here. And I thought, what greater opportunity is there to try to pass on what I've learned, what I've been a part of, and hopefully inspire maybe or inform a little bit. I don't know that I'm smarter than anybody in here. I'm honestly, I'll tell you truthfully, I don't think I'm a very good coach scientifically, and there's a lot of stuff I don't know. What I have learned over the years is that even idiots who love their kids and work them hard tend to have success. I've seen some coaches do things that I thought, what are you thinking? And their kids win. And I'm like, it works. It works. When I was in college and coming out of I guess getting into college coaching and high school coaching, I used to come to these clinics. They have them in Texas too, and we would sit and listen to these college coaches come in and speak. And my greatest complaint was always, they don't get it. High school is so different. They don't get it. They would come in and put these plans up and talk about periodization and year-round, you know, here's what we do in this phase, and here's what we do in this phase, and I have them for 6 hours today, and then on Saturday they'll come up and we'll do this, and I'm thinking, yeah, no, not where I live. You know, there was 3 of us coaching, and we had 60 kids on a team, and we had them for 45 minutes. What do you do? It was tough. And so I hope as we go through today, if I say some things that you kind of go, yeah, you're out there, say, hey, coach, wait a minute, come back to us. My career started, I was a junior high teacher. I taught Texas history. I taught math for 1 semester, and then they realized I couldn't teach math. Honestly, every kid I taught ended up taking remedial math the next year. It was pretty bad. But I was able to do some things. I got promoted to the high school for about 3 or 4 years. It was kind of a blue-collar town of about 50,000 people, and you know, it was run by a football coach, basically, and it was all about that. But he knew that track was important. And so I was fortunate to be able to work in this situation because he helped me in a lot of things. After about 6 years there, I was offered a job at Sam Houston State University for a whopping $10,000 a year. My office was a broom closet, and my other job was to paint the lines on the football field and drive the buggy for the old people up to the stadium on home football games. I told my wife what we were doing. Well, I asked her permission to do it, and she gritted her teeth and said, okay, if that's what you really want to do, I'm going to trust you, and we're going to do this. So we did that for 2 years, and then I was fortunate to get a job at what is now Texas State University, and then 6 years after that to go to Texas Tech and coach at what I thought was the highest level. It was fun. We moved back and got to coach at Abilene Christian for about 3 or 4 years, where my dad had coached previously, and had a great time. And then my daughters, I've got 3 daughters, and I have a son now that we adopted a few years ago, and he's a toot. But my daughters were getting into high school age and junior high age, and I thought, you know, I'm missing it. I'm leaving in the morning at 5:30. I'm coming home at 7:30 or 8 at night. I'm gone on the weekends to meets and recruiting, and I'm just missing it. So I had a cousin who was an athletic director about 80 miles away from me, and he, out of the blue, and I don't know y'all's faith, but I think God did a great thing for me, and he called me and he said, you know, I'm looking for a girls athletic coordinator. You won't have to teach any classes. You're just going to be the girls track and cross country coach, the boys track and cross country coach, and you'll do athletic periods all day long. Heaven came early, man. This was good. So for 8 years, I got paid to be a dad, and was just a tremendous blessing. When they finished, I looked at my wife and I said, can we go back to college coaching, please? I'm so tired of dealing with parents and kids that don't want to do what you ask them to do. And she said, yes, let's go. And so we had a couple of opportunities and landed at Harding University down in Arkansas. We're a Division II school. We're a little private Christian school, about 5,000 kids. And it's a tremendously beautiful place and a great place to work. And so we're trying to build something there and doing some good things. And so that's kind of my background. Just so I hope you know, I feel your pain with the high school. How many of y'all are metropolitan coaches? You're in a big city. Okay. How many would call yourselves rural? Rural, is that the word? Okay. That's a little few more. How many high schools of over 1,000? Okay. So it's about 50-50. Okay. So your situations are very different. What I want to do this first, they actually let me talk 3 times. I hope I can stretch this out into 3 sessions. What I want to do today, this first session, is talk about what drives a program. I'm going to give you my version. I love that there are several speakers. They don't just bring in one person to do the distance stuff at this clinic. I think a variety of views, a variety of opinions is awesome. What I'm going to tell you may not apply to you. It may not apply to your program directly, but there may be some things that you can adapt or create, you know, that would help you. I'm going to tell you what I've done and what I believe and what I saw growing up. My dad was a very successful coach back in the 1970s and 80s. They won 7 or 8 straight Division II national championships. They scored 200-something points at the national meet. I mean, he was the guy. He was to Division II back then what Nick Saban is to football now. It was just incredible. World record holders in the pole vault and just incredible stuff. So I grew up in that atmosphere, and it was fun. And what I noticed with my dad was every time kids would graduate out, they would always come back. They loved him. They just flat out loved him. And I thought, wow, how does he do that? So I started paying attention. As I got up into high school, I started watching how he coached and what he did. And I noticed we had kids at our house all the time. My dad, I love him, but I think he spent more time with them than he did with us. And you guys know that. And I was a little jealous, but I couldn't pole vault. I was slow and skinny and weak and scared. But I loved watching it. It was a lot of fun. And so I realized if I'm going to be with my dad, I've got to learn some of these things. And so I'd had you remember the old VCR cameras that you had, the VHS, the big battery on one side and the big old camera up here? That was my job. When I wasn't running, that I was the manager and the video guy. And we bonded over that, and we had a blast. And I fell in love with track and field. I was a distance runner. My first track meet, my dad put me in the 50-meter dash, the 100-meter dash, and the long jump. I got last, and next to last. And he said, well, try the mile, son. So we ran the mile, and I won my age group just out of stupidity. And he said, boy, you're a distance runner. And so there we went. But I fell in love with it. It was great. It was fun. And I got to be a part of some good cross-country teams and do some things that were exciting. And I wanted to, as I moved up into post-collegiate, I wanted to be a coach. And I wanted to have the impact that I felt like my family had on kids before me. My mom was very involved in what we did. She would, every Sunday, she would cook pies for every kid that had a PR the week before. She learned, as word got out year to year, that some of them would dog it the first meet so that they could PR as time went by, because she was pretty good. But it was incredible, the investment that they made in that. And I was very fortunate to marry a young lady who also wanted to buy into that, and who was outreach minded, I guess, to bring kids in and to make an impact on them. So what I'm going to go into, I want to surround that in that my primary purpose is not to make them the best team or the best runners, but to inspire them to be the best they can be. Period. If my purpose is to make them fast, they lose sight of how I feel about them and what's really important, because they're not always going to be fast. Some of them can't be. They just have the wrong parents. And that's not their fault. But if we can get them to be and accept that the goal is to become the best they can be, whatever that is, we've done some good. And some of them will discover that they can be a whole lot better than they thought with time. So my job, I feel like, first is to just love them. Just flat out love them, care about them, and let them know that. If I succeed in that, it's amazing how much they will give back to what I'm asking. And so that's where we start. So when I'm looking at the great programs, when I was a young coach, there were several schools in Texas that had tremendously successful programs, and I watched those and I went to clinics and I took notes on the things that they did. And then I realized most of them were from usually very affluent cities, very affluent high schools with lots of students, and had great advantages that I wasn't going to have in a town that was literally ruled by the football coach. And I was a football coach as well. And when we started cross-country practices, he didn't like it. And so we had to do it either way before school, because we started football practices at 6:30, or we had to do it after football was over, which was about 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night. But you do what you got to do. So my first thoughts were, and these things kind of helped me, these questions, I guess, helped me decide what I could and what I couldn't do that they do. Because again, they don't all fit in every place. Can I do what they do? Do I have the personality that's going to attract kids to come run? Some of us do, and some of us are hard to be around. You see some coaches, and I wonder sometimes, how does he get anyone to come run for him? Who would like her? How does she do this? How does she keep her job? And there's others that I think, man, I'd love to be on your team. That's awesome. Personality has a lot. Personality can be controlled. If you're trying to keep it really clean here. If you are a hard person to be around, you can change that. Work on it. Ask people around you. Hopefully they'll be honest. You know, are there things about me that hurt my coaching? And if they truly want you to be successful, they'll help you. They'll tell you what you need to do. You know, can I do what they do? Most successful coaches spend a lot of time with their kids. You may be at a point in your life that you can't. I would never tell you to sacrifice your family for your career. That's a mistake. The divorce rate amongst coaches is incredibly high. And that's sad. But it's usually because we get caught up in making our mark and we forget that we've got people at home that we've committed to. So hopefully you're with a family that's part of that journey with you. And that helps. All of my daughters were runners, so they didn't really have a choice, but they accepted it. My wife was a runner, so it was easy for us. It may not be that way. I'll tell you, it's not worth sacrificing those that you love just to win a race or to build a program. So you may not be able to do the time commitment that it takes to develop one of those type programs. There may be other things you think about. Do you have what they have? Do you have the finances? Your school may not support you. Do you have the time? Do you honestly have the commitment to put in what it takes to be great, to build a great program? It's not easy. It's not easy. There's a lot to it. And you may decide when you look at it, you know what, okay, if we're just here, that's okay for me. That may be where you fall. Location. If I'm in an inner city high school, and I'm going to build a cross-country program, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tougher. If I live in one of those towns where they've got running trails that go everywhere, and the sun's always shining, and everybody says, yay, there go the runners, everybody supports them, wow, yeah, that's a little bit easier. If I'm in a city where both parents are working and they're never at home and they want their kids to get a job and grow up, that's harder to build a program. So, we don't all have the same circumstances. Tradition. What drives your school? Is it a basketball school? Is it a hockey? Do y'all have hockey in high school? I'm assuming. Yeah. We don't. There's things that have to be overcome. Some kids grow up in towns and they dream of being the basketball player. They dream of being the hockey player. They dream of being the quarterback. And if they talk about cross country, they're like, what? Yeah, that's not part of it. And so you've got to find a way to maybe change that. And then I'll tell you, should or can your situation mirror the ones that are great? Again, I think you've got to adapt. Everything has to be adapted to your situation. Some might transfer directly over, but for the most part, you got to be a master at adapting and making things fit where you are. Maybe even eliminate some things, or maybe even create some of your own. These things I feel like are out of your control at the beginning. And as we go into this, I want to make sure you guys understand, building success is not an overnight accomplishment. Most coaches that have very successful programs either inherited it or it took them several years to create it. It's not a 1 or 2 year, well, here we go, look what I've done. Not very often. I don't know what you have, what your school gives you. Do they help you do this? Do they not? I found out that the high school I was working at a few years ago, I did not know this, but every time a new athletic director came in, and I think I had 4 athletic directors in 8 years, every time they came in, the superintendent would meet with the athletic director and say, you leave Coach Hood alone. You let him do what he needs to do. Man, I'm just a cross-country coach, man, and they're saying, leave me alone. It was fantastic. The school created an off-season class period for cross-country boys, first period, so we could get up and train and get it done. And then if they want to play football or whatever, they could do that in the afternoons. It was fantastic. They did things eventually that allowed us to have some success, but it took a little time for that to get there. Your community, again, does it support you or not? A lot of times they don't to begin with. It's hard to get financial assistance. Alabama, Huntsville, that's a long way from here, but man, they had a city golf course and the city was going to shut it down, and they had info meeting and said, come bring us suggestions. Cross-country coach went in and said, let's make this a cross-country course. And had numbers of what he felt like they could bring into the city. They went for it. Oh, they laser graded and created a course, put in irrigation and sodded it, and it's like running on carpet. It's incredible. That'll never happen for him, probably not for any of us, but it's amazing what, just by going and asking and showing some success and how it's helping people can create some things sometimes. Parent support is huge. It's gigantic, I feel like, in creating this, because most kids, especially the younger ones, have to get a ride to practice. And if you're doing do y'all do early morning practices? It's probably too cold here. I don't know. We do in South. It's too hot to run. But getting them back and forth, you got to have parents. And if parents don't care, you're not going to have kids that care. So it's tough sometimes. So those are things that I feel like are kind of out of your control at the beginning. But those things can be shifted. They can be shifted with time, and if you're doing the right things for the right purpose. And then talent pool, you got no control over that at all. I assume you're not allowed to recruit from one school to another. Yeah, I hope not. What you got is what you got. But I'll tell you, talent can be hidden. And if you're willing to do the right things, you might discover. So what you can do, and there's about 7 things I want to talk about. I'm good, okay. As we go through this, I think first and foremost, you've got to be a recruiter. You've got to be actively recruiting. What are you recruiting to? You can say whatever you want to, but the bottom line is you are the face of the program. Without a doubt, you are the face of the program. They will first be attracted or repelled by you and your attitude and your approach. So how you present yourself and your demeanor, is that a good word? That's a big word for me, is vital, I think. But every kid will be attracted by maybe a little different facet to it. It could be about being on a team, about representing the school, about being a competitor. Some of y'all have schools where kids get cut from sports. Man, I'm the basket. I'm catching those kids. Come on, I've got a sport you can do. Let's do this. We had a guy at Harding University back in the 60s. I love him to death. He's 70-something years old now. He came to Harding to play basketball. He was the last guy cut. And he loves to tell this story. He was packing his bags to go home. And some of his buddies came in and said, no, stay here one semester, run cross country this fall, just so you've got something to do. The guy ends up being second in the conference, and 4 years later, he's running in the Olympic trials in the steeplechase. Somebody caught him. What a change in his life. You may be recruiting just to fitness. When I was at the Brownwood High School, our junior high coordinator was awesome, and every kid, every female athlete came 3 days a week in the morning to run at least a mile. Some of them could not run a mile. Several of them couldn't. But it was amazing as time went by how they got a little better and got a little better because they had to. And if they missed a morning practice, this coordinator was awesome. They didn't compete in their volleyball or basketball or whatever else they had. They had to be there. That was part of their training for their sport. And we got more cross-country runners out of that because they realized it wasn't as bad as they thought. But it was the fitness that attracted them at first. Fun, I don't know how many would consider cross-country that much fun, but you can do fun things associated with it, right, that will attract them. There's a lot of things, the confidence of doing things, the fact it's a unique sport, and that unique people do this, and then just having some success. Both high schools I've worked at, when we started recruiting kids, we started with the younger ones. There aren't many juniors or seniors that you're going to convince to come out for cross-country. Most of them have found their sport or have decided not to do a sport. But if you can get them in junior high or even earlier, we would host a cross-country meet or two every year. And I would always, at the end of the meet, we would end up having a kindergarten race, a first and second grade race, third and fourth grade race, and a fifth and sixth grade race for different distances. The first year, we had 5 kids show up. The next year, we had 25 kids show up. The next year, we had 100 kids show up. And then after about the second year, the elementary school PE teachers started having running clubs because they wanted to beat the other elementary schools. And so we had parents bringing kids up to school at 7 in the morning and running a mile or a mile and a half with them and keeping track of their mileage. And all of a sudden, kids are coming up and going, I want to run cross country. This is good. But it took other people, right, to buy into this. But because their kids weren't doing well at the cross country meets, the parents put pressure on the elementary teachers. Let's do something to help these kids. And it grew. And it was really fun to watch. And again, recruit all comers. And I wouldn't turn anyone away. We had a freshman girl one year that couldn't run a mile without stopping. I remember the day she ran 2 miles without stopping. She comes across the field. I can still see her face. Her hands are up. Coach, I did it. I said, what'd you do? 2 miles. 18 and a half minutes. But she made it. By the end of that season, she had run a 14:32 mile. The next year, she ran 13 flat. The next year, she ran 12:30. Her senior year, I think I'm adding those up right, she ran 11:45 for a 2-mile race. Wow. Went to college and was a college athlete because we didn't turn her away. You never know. You never know. And some of us are at schools where we need everybody we can get. And so I don't turn anyone away. How do you recruit? Man, we had parent meetings, we had our youth races, we had running clubs. We would have, in the summertime, we would have pancake runs. On Saturday mornings, the kids would come to my house. I bought a big old griddle and a bunch of Aunt Jemima pancake mix, and we would have at it. And I bought some really cool t-shirts that had a stack of pancakes on the back. And every kid that could run at least, I think we put it to 5 miles, would get one of those t-shirts. We had kids show up that weren't even on the cross-country team, just to run the 5 miles because those t-shirts were cool because they got a pancake shirt. I still get pictures from kids from 10 years ago, 15 years ago that still have their pancake shirts and talk about that. Those kind of things make a tremendous difference, I think. And it was fun. So you got to be a constant recruiter. It's your eyes are always looking for somebody that might come help. You got to have a purpose. Nobody wants to run just to run. There's got to be some kind of vision you have for your program, and you may see where you want to go, but if you show that to your kids, it may blow them away. My first day of cross-country practice at Brownwood High School, we had 5 kids show up. We ran 1.75 miles, what I thought would be their warm-up. And they fell over. They said, "Whoa, Coach, you killed us today." I said, no, please, no, we're just getting started. But not that day. But 4 years later, that was our warm-up, and those seniors that were freshmen back then laughed about how bad they were. But that was one of our first visions was, let's make this our warm-up. Let's get so good that this is easy. And then we had a rival school, a school that we just flat did not like at all, that had a pretty good cross-country program. Our goal is we're going to beat them. That's who we're after. You guys bring your friends in here and let's go after this and let's go beat that team. And all of a sudden, 2 years later, we beat them. And they never beat us again. Some kind of vision. And it may be the immediate, but your mind is thinking long term. And you've got to somehow impart that to your athletes. I'll promise you this, I've never, maybe once or twice, but I have rarely seen an athlete rise above the vision of their coaches or the aspirations of their coaches. Usually they strive to meet that. And when they get there, it's like, okay, I've done it. It needs to be open, right? It needs to be, let's see how great, and once they get to a level, and I think you got a little more. And there's that vision of being the best you can possibly be all the time. What are they working toward? Give them a goal. I'll tell you this too, be personal. For my 60th birthday, my wife had some of my former athletes send me messages, and I was really afraid to listen to some of them. But most of them were pretty positive. One of them was a girl from Brownwood, the last high school we were at, and she said, "Coach, I'll never forget the day that I was running the elementary school cross-country race, and you came up to me afterwards and said, 'You could be pretty good at this. I hope you'll come run for me.'" I don't remember that at all. At all. But I have tried to make it what I do, that everywhere in that town, that if I saw somebody that I thought could be a runner, hope you'll come run for me. Man, you could be good at this. Wow, boy, if you'd just spend a little more time with this, you might really be something. And you know, you shoot a lot of bullets, maybe you hit a bird or two, right? But you got to shoot a lot of bullets. You got to shake a lot of trees, and maybe something will fall out. But if you're waiting for them to come to you, if you just put up a sign that says cross-country tryouts today, hope you show up, people will walk by and go, "What's cross-country?" "Oh, that's where you go run a lot." "Ah, no thanks." And you've lost them. So be personal, be positive, be positive. You know, you ran a mile today. That's awesome. We would celebrate when our out-of-shape junior high girls would finish their first mile. There was a party. The whole team, all 100 junior high girls would stand around and wait because they would see what they were doing and they would celebrate with them. It was fun. Those kind of things are different. And always be hopeful. Even when they fail, that you come back and go, "You know, one race does not define you. You've got something in you. If you'll just keep working, if you'll just keep believing, you've got a chance." And man, they love that. Because a lot of times all they hear at home is, "Why are you running?" You know, and their friends, "Come with us, you know, come do this, come do this." "No, I can't, I've got a race to," you know. Why are you doing that? They've got to have some hope continually that good things are coming. Different kids respond to different things, and you've got to have some awareness. Part of my philosophy, too, is that they've got to win. They've got to win. I don't mean first place at the race. They got to win. When our little girl finished her 2-mile run first time, that was a win. And we celebrated that. Personal wins, personal accomplishments will create a great team. We got to remember that even your slowest kid at times could end up being. Y'all watch, what was the movie, McFarland? Yeah, you know, and I know the guy wasn't really that big. I know that wasn't a real accurate depiction, but what a story. What a story, you know, somebody saving the day. We win with the distance that we run. You know, we would have a yearly, one of our first workouts of the year in high school was that we would go out, and we do it still in college, and try to run at least a mile further than they had run the year before. So if they had done 3 miles the year before, they'd get a 4-miler in that day. Or if they'd done 10 miles the year before, they'd get an 11-miler in that day. But every year it was going to be one mile further than they had ever run. So that it was something they looked forward to. They knew it was coming. And we'd take them out on a bus, and I'd drop them off. Okay, 3-milers, get out here. 4-milers, get out here. 5-milers, 8-milers, 13-milers, you know, whatever. And they were like, "Coach, I ran 13 miles today. 3 years ago, I ran 6 miles. Yeah, look how much better you are." And that was a win. It took a long time, but it was a win. Weekly mileage, you can win with that. You know, what's the most you've ever run in a week? 25 miles. Let's go 28 this week. Did you do it? Yeah, that's a victory. That's good. Every little accomplishment that you can turn into a win is going to reinforce to them that, you know, maybe I'm pretty good at this. Maybe there's something in this for me. Times are hard to argue with. It's really tough when they run really well, but their times are slower than before. And in cross country especially, that's tough because courses are so different. It may be 80 degrees at one meet with 30-mile-an-hour winds blowing, and they're just dying, and the next week it's 50 degrees, you know, and no wind, and it's like, whoa, I can really run fast. what we would try to do was go to at least one or two of the same meets every year, so they had some kind of landmarks. Well, last year on this course, I ran this, and this year I ran this, so that they had something to measure it to, that was real for them. But trying to keep it real, but seeing progress. And then team accomplishments are always important. That again builds that dependency, on every kid. There were times that we were disappointed, that we almost did what we wanted to do, and we could point back, and again, I would never do it in front of the team, but I might take one off to the side and say, if you'd have just finished a little, you let one person pass you that last 5 meters. If you'd have beaten them, it would have been 2 points closer. Man, that bothers them. That really bothers them. Coach was disappointed in me. But we would always finish it up with, I think you can. I think you just had a little mental lapse. And I think if you'll just stay focused all the way through, that won't happen again. And it's incredible how they will respond to that. But holding them accountable for the team's success, I think, is a big part of that too. And when they do well, to celebrate those things. Being consistent. You guys all know that. You can't become a great runner without doing it all the time. It's not a part-time sport. It can't be. I don't know y'all's situation. How many of y'all have multi-sport athletes that are also your cross-country runners? A few of us do, yeah. There's always, how many of those are some of your better runners? Yeah, kills you, doesn't it? But sometimes that's good. Sometimes, if I don't know what y'all's season setup is here, but I know in Texas, soccer and basketball and softball are all in the track interference, and they won't change it for anything. But you just kind of have to play with what you got, and make that work. But consistency begins with you. There were times that we would have during cross-country season, some of our girls played volleyball, and I would wait till after their game was over and say, come on, get your clothes on, let's go run. And so we'd go for a run in the dark. But it was a victory. To me, it was one of those things that they kind of took pride in, because everybody else was driving home and they would see us running off. And they were either thinking, wow, that coach is really mean, or those girls are really committed. And I would tell them as we were running, I said, you see everybody else is leaving, look what you guys are doing. Y'all are better than anybody else. Y'all are tougher than anybody else here. And they would believe that, because it was true. But it begins with you, and that's essential. If you're not consistent, they will not be consistent. You got to be there. You've got to be there. And that's hard sometimes. You got to be consistent with your attitude. You can't be I almost said Heckle and Jekyll. Jekyll and Hyde, right? Jekyll and Hyde. You can't be for them one day and the next day you're chewing them out and cussing them. You got to be right with them. Your confidence, even when they have a horrible day, that they still believe that you believe in them. That is essential. Your confidence has to be consistent. Your training needs to be consistent. You can't just all of a sudden come in 1 week and go, we've been doing everything wrong. We're going to do this now. All they're going to go is, Coach is an idiot. Now, the next year, if you want to change things, or if you want to work some things in, great. But man, be consistent with your training. Let them know. They need to feel confident that you believe in what you're doing. Your enthusiasm, it's got to be, I don't mean you got to be rah-rah, pom-poms and cheerleader every time. But you've got to be enthusiastic about what we're doing. There are mornings we get up and I'm meeting my kids at 6 o'clock and I'm rolling out of bed going, I hate this job. But when we walk in, let's go. Let's get it done today. We got to have that. They will feed off of you, or they will starve because of you, because most of them depend upon that adult, that coach, as their foundation. Faith and confidence are kind of the same thing, but I think I think that has to be that you constantly believe in their abilities and what's going to happen. Sacrifice is tough. And again, it begins with you. If you're going to ask them to come in the summers and run, you better be there. Are y'all allowed to? Okay. I mean, that's every state's a little bit different, but if you're gonna require that of them, why in the world would you not be there too? Because if you're not there, you don't care. Their response is going to be, why should I care? Summertime is tough. Yeah, and again, I'm not saying give up your life, but work your life around what's important. There's time for vacation, that you have to take a vacation. But work that around what's important. Let the kids know, we're going to go up to here, and then this week, we're off this week. Or I'm going to be gone. I'm going to allow you guys vacation as well, so that you're not holding them to a standard you don't hold yourself to. Mornings, if you do weekend runs, again, I feel like that's something you've got to be there for. The weather, y'all only have good weather up here, so it's really not an issue, right? I have seen pictures that just blow me. You guys are incredible. It snowed in Arkansas about 2 years ago. We shut down school for 2 weeks. I'm serious. We missed 3 indoor track meets, and it finally got to the point where I went to the store and bought about 8 shovels and got my distance kids, and we went off and shoveled off lane 1 because it was this deep, which is like a frosting for y'all, right? And we got out, we got some work done, but it was incredible. And I've seen pictures of tracks being shoveled with snow up to here, and people getting out and doing what you do. That's incredible. But that sacrifice, again, if you're willing to do it, they're going to be willing. That's a badge of honor, for these kids. But the pictures that you take, our kids still have pictures of us, running around the track with the snow piled up on the side. Again, it wasn't very much, but it was a huge deal to them. So half of our kids are from Florida or Texas, so they see snow, once or twice in their life. What you do on the winter break, I think is important as well. That you're there for them. And again, it's a grind sometimes. It's hard sometimes because there's so much, and it's such a long process. But if you're there and you're willing to sacrifice, I think they will too. Bonding, man, there is nothing harder. I don't know, maybe cross country is a little easier than track. We were talking about track is so split, man. You got your throwers that are over here and your distance kids, and sometimes your sprinters, and then you got jumper, and it's hard. But with cross country and with your distance crew, it's pretty easy to get them to bond. You can have a wide variety of personalities, but they have that commonality that you can bring together. We try to develop loyalty to 3 different things. First of all, to each other. If they are loyal to each other, it's amazing what they will do and what they will go through because they feel like they have to. Because they let the team down otherwise, and they let their friends down. We want to be loyal to our program, that we're always going to give our best effort. We're going to represent wherever we are, that we're going to represent our program to the best of our ability. And we're going to be loyal to themselves. Because it comes down to our success depends upon each single person. And if they're not trying to be the best they can possibly be, they're letting everybody down, including themselves. I don't know up north, but in the South, a lot of times we come back to, we were created for a purpose. And it's an obligation that I feel like we have to be the best we can be. We weren't put here to be average. We weren't put here to be like everybody else. And we talk a lot about, in order to be great, you got to do great things. Dreams are fun, and wanting to, and plans and writing out stuff is great, but it really comes down to what you do. And if you're going to be the best version of you that you can possibly be, you got to do the right things. So we talk about that a lot. How do we do that? Well, we go to team retreats. I would take my high school team to a college cross-country camp. We'd go up to New Mexico and run in the mountains with the Texas Tech coaches and kids, and it was fun. We would do fundraisers for that. We'd do some pretty cool things. Team retreats. We take our college team out for about 3 or 4 days and stay at a little church camp, and they sleep in cabins, and we run through this little wildlife preserve, and it's pretty cool. We forgot one out there last year. It took them about 3 hours to get home. But we didn't get fired. We would have meals, pre-meet meals over at your house or at somebody's house, and that's a great way to get parents involved, to have a spaghetti dinner or something, a pizza dinner or something like that. We would always watch a movie, before our do y'all have district or conference? What do y'all call your first conference? Yeah. Conference. We'd have something. We'd always watch Running Brave. Anybody seen Running Brave? Oh, that's one of the best movies ever. If you haven't, you need to watch it. It's Billy Mills, man. And the first hour and a half is hard, but the last 20 minutes, man, let's go. It's fantastic. So that's a good one. But those kind of things, they'll talk about those forever. Movie nights are fun. And they will eventually get to the point where you'll be amazed they'll do this without you. You can actually assign it to parents, and it may be good sometimes for you to step back and appoint team leaders, to come in and help take charge. And now then you're creating something that wasn't there before. But those things can grow, and parents like that kind of stuff. They like to know where their kids are and who they're with. And you just given them an opportunity to meet their closest friends and spend some time with them and get to know them better. So you're pulling parents in as you do this kind of thing. We would always take an overnight trip. That our kids, we would have a couple of meets, and then we would take our top kids. So there was a fight for this. Maybe our top 10 or whatever they'd allow us to enter would get to go on an overnight trip. And we'd go into Dallas, Fort Worth, and find a big meet, and boy, it was fun. They would fight like crazy to be a part of that. And I would have parents call me and say, well, how come my kid? Well, your kid was 11th. I'm sorry. That's the beauty of cross country, is there's not a lot of objectivity or subjectivity to it, right? It's very, here you go. Here's what you did. And that makes it easier. And again, we would get parents to go with us on some of these trips. And we're drawing people in that were really good. So those things, I feel like from a coach's perspective, I've got the most control over those kind of things. I can make this happen over 3 or 4 years if I really want to. Last thing that I want to talk about is toughness. Coaches, and again, I've seen some very successful coaches that do it the complete opposite of this. And it bothers me, but it works for them. We never start off testing our kids to see how tough they are. But I know some coaches, the first week of practice, it's like, hey, time trial, baby, let's go. What do you got? Mine couldn't have finished. We'd have lost them all. It's kind of like you've heard the story of putting the frog in the pot, and you want to boil the frog, and you turn the heat up slowly. That frog will stay in there, and actually, I don't know I've never done it to a frog, right? But that's what I hear. That frog will stay in there and eventually will boil alive. But if you throw him into a pot of hot water, he'll jump out immediately. Well, most kids don't grow up wanting to be distance runners, wanting to run cross country, wanting to feel the pain that cross country runners go through. Guys, it's miserable. It hurts. And what's sad is the better you get, it doesn't hurt less. You just finish sooner. It's a very unique personality, a very unique desire to do these things, and we've got to craft that. I feel like. So we teach toughness, but we don't do it too soon. We give it in little doses, so that eventually they're taking big bites. My philosophy is I love this. I read the Jack Daniels book of coaching. I don't know how many of y'all done that before. It's an awesome book. His motto is train, don't strain. Whereas most Americans go, no pain, no gain, right? If I don't kill you, I hadn't done my job. No, just train. Just train. There's no reason to kill them, not yet. Let them live to train tomorrow. We get so caught up in today's workout that we forget there's other days coming. Let them get through today. Be careful of what you ask of them. And again, you're going to have a wide range of kids. Some can do more than others. That's okay. That's okay. There are days that I'll have a freshman come in and we'll do a certain amount. And I go, okay, you're done. But coach, I feel good. Good, you're done. But coach, no, you're done. I like that kind, right? And then the juniors and seniors keep going, and he's sitting there going, well, maybe 2 weeks later, we do a similar workout. Okay, you can do one more of them this time. All right, coach. What have we done? All of a sudden, he's trying to get tougher because we made him stop, and it embarrassed him. I don't care if I'm a freshman. I can run with these guys. Well, good. You'll prove it in time. And the seniors are looking back going, this guy's coming up, man. I better be something because he's coming after me. I think we're wise if we're careful. We teach toughness every day, though. We talk about it almost every day. We praise their progress. You want to make somebody tough, praise them. Care about them. Engage them, and they will do things for you that they won't do anywhere else. At the last high school I was at, we would divide our kids into groups. We had an A group, a B group, a C group, and a D group. The D group was the lowest. They were running about 15 miles a week. The C group was 20 miles a week. The B group was 20 to 30, and the A group was 30 and up. And the goal was hopefully that the D groups would kind of go, I want to move up. You know what I found out? They were very content. They were in that D group for a purpose. They wanted to be on the team, but don't make me do too much, coach. I just like to wear the uniform, and go on the trips. And so what we ended up doing was, I thought I could praise them out of it, but it didn't work. We made a requirement that in the D group, you could only be there for 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, you had to move up. And then in the C group, you had about a 6-week window. And as long as you were healthy, then you had to move up to the B group. Now the B group, once they got to there, if they were in that D group and they got to the B group, they were doing pretty good. The ones that started in the B group were usually pretty hungry to move on up. So that there was a range there, but there were ways to, sometimes we had to kick them to make them tougher, and there were other times that we had to pull them back to make them tougher. But we praised them as they moved up regardless. And again, I think anticipating success. That every time we would finish one of our benchmark workouts, oh man, that was better than last time. Next time we do this in 2 weeks, I think you can run them this fast. I think you can maybe go this far. Maybe you can do 2 more reps so that they're coming into this next workout going, yeah, I'm going to do a little bit more. And we just turn the heat up, just another notch so that they're enjoying the challenge of it and knocking off the reps and doing things without even realizing that they're creating toughness because they want to. That's very different than me making you. The last thing, and this is really difficult, I think, but I think it's something we need to do, is to treat their seasons and even their careers like you would a race. I remember at the Texas State meet one year, there was this guy from a little bitty town of about 60 people in his high school, and he qualified in the mile for the state meet. And I was there recruiting, and I sat down and I heard this coach talking to him, and he was pumping him up. And he said, Billy Bob, or whatever his name was, he said, hey, listen, here's what you're going to do. You're going to take the lead, you're going to go out hard, and nobody's going to pass you. You don't let anybody pass you. Yeah, coach. You hear me, son? Yes, sir, coach. What are you going to do? I'm going to go out hard. Nobody's going to pass me. All right. And I'm thinking, boy, it's going to be fun to watch. They shoot the gun. He's 59.9 at the end of his first lap. His PR is 4:32. Yeah. He's 40 yards ahead of everybody. Coach is going, yeah, yeah. At 200 meters later, he's in second place. They made up 40 meters in about a half a lap. At the 800 mark, he's 6th. There's only 8 in the race. The next lap, he's 10 yards behind everybody, and he finishes dead last 30 yards behind everybody. And I can just hear the coach screaming at him. I told you, don't let anybody pass you. And the kid comes off the track, and the coach meets him, and he's chewing on him. And I was like, would you retire, please? how sad. And yet sometimes it's tempting for us to treat our kids that way in their season and in their career. We come in and they're fresh and they're feeling good. Well, let's hit it, man. Let's go. And we crush them. And they get to the end of the season and they're just hanging on, hoping they can finish. Oh, man. Hope I never have to do this again. Instead of letting the season build just like you would let a race build. If they've done things right, you can do that. We've got to kind of hold back. They are usually, it's kind of scary, but a lot of times kids run better early in the season than they do late in the season because they haven't been beat up. So I think we've got to be careful that we treat their seasons and their careers like we would a race. We want to start off at something they can handle. And that's going to be different for every kid. What we do when they come into our program in the college ranks, when they come in, I'll ask them, I'll sit down with each one, what's the most you've ever run in a week? 40 miles, coach. Good, good. That's pretty solid for coming out of high school. That's really good. We're going to start you off at 40 miles a week through the summertime. And maybe twice or three times in the summer, we'll bump them maybe 3%, 5%. So when they come into us, they've done some weeks of maybe 45 or 46 miles a week. And we'll stay there through the fall. And so when I write up the workouts, we've got kids running anywhere. Honestly, our best male runner is a 25 to 30 mile a week guy. And he ran 30-20 for 10K. Yeah, God just went, you're a runner, son. But he can do, he's bumping, we're getting there, but it's slow. If we do more, he gets hurt. So when we write up the workouts, I put a percentage of what I want, and I'll put maybe 90% this week. So every kid goes through, instead of me writing up 32 different workouts, every kid goes through and says, okay, Sunday is this run. I've got this range. Monday is this workout. We're doing this many reps and this much warm-up. Tuesday is this run. We're going to go this far to this far. And they go through and they pick their poison so that they have input into how much they do each day and how far they, instead of me going to each kid and going, okay, you're doing 6, you're doing 7, you're doing 3, you run this pace, you run that pace. They figure themselves out. And then we come to the workout and I'll come up and say, how far are you going today? 6, coach. Okay, good. How far are you going? 15. Good, good. You sure you can handle that? Yeah, I feel pretty good. And they take that 90% of 45 and they're going to get 41 miles in that week. The 60-mile-a-week person is going to get 54 miles, right? The 80-mile-a-week person is going to get 72 that week. So they've got some input, and we're giving them some investment, but we're also treating their career like we would a race. They're coming in at a rate they can handle, and then we'll stay that way through the fall. Then in the wintertime, we may bump them 3 or 5% again. So now instead of 45 miles a week, they're a 48, 50-mile-a-week person. And then through the springtime, we'll stay at about 50 miles a week at their max. And the next summer, we may go to 55 miles a week. And then in the fall, they'll stay there. And then the next winter, we'll bump them. Maybe they're 58 or 60 miles a week. So over 2 years, we've done some good work, but we haven't thrown them in the fire where you're in college now, son. Let's go 70 miles a week this week. They might go a week or two, and then it's over most of the time. Now, some of them, again, each one's an individual, right? Some of them will come in, and 40 miles a week was not enough for them in high school. And after about 3 weeks, they're chomping at the bit, and they're healthy, and they're like, Coach, I can do more. Okay, sure. We got a little girl that came in as a 40-mile-a-week girl. She's running, as a freshman now, she's running 60 to 65 miles a week because she weighs about 82 pounds and can run all day. There's no, not really, she's bigger than that. She's just a running machine. And there's no pounding at all. There's nothing excess on her. She loves to run, and she's handled it. But there's others who have come in at 45 or 50 miles a week that we've had to cut back because they couldn't handle that, and they were injured all through high school. So treating them with reason is to me, it's just wise. It's just smart to do that. But still progressing as you go so that there's a goal. There's some anticipation of things getting better as they go through this. And they will toughen up. Because most of them that come in want to do more. They want to be better. And if they understand what it takes for that to happen, they'll buy into this. But too hard at the beginning is just a recipe for disaster. It's a train wreck waiting to happen. Finally, do this, man. You do this and you'll have a chance. Find what you're good at and pursue that. It will be different than anybody else, but find what you're good at and pursue that. Do the things that attracts and keep you. If you lose athletes, you can't get better. Find a way to keep them. Find a way to keep them. That may mean that not everybody shows up every day. If they're playing volleyball or basketball or football, maybe they don't have to come every day. Maybe they can't. That's okay. Finally, this is my life in a nutshell, right? Be patiently impatient. I can't wait, but I have to. If you've got that knot, in your stomach, that just constantly every morning you get up and you're thinking, maybe today will be a better day. We're gonna be a little better. Maybe I can get this done today. Maybe they're gonna run a little better today. That's the drive. If you don't have that, you need to find it. You need to find it, because if you don't have that little drive in you that just makes you want to keep getting better and make you keep loving these kids, and no matter what they've done, that you keep caring and keep encouraging and keep pulling them up, it's hard to be successful. But if that's inside of you, man, you got a chance to do some great things for some very good kids. And when it's all said and done, they will remember some of the races, but more than anything else, they're going to remember how they felt about you. Period. And that's most important. So I hope that's where this comes from. All this other stuff is great, but boy, if it emanates out of care and love and concern for them and making their lives better and making them better people, we're doing it right. I go 5 minutes over. Wow. Thank you all for your attention very much.
Next session's 1 o'clock with Rachel. Anybody here last night saw Rachel speak? Pretty good. So we got her back at 1 o'clock. Just outside of Adelaide.
Did you really? No way. No, hold on. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Billy was just finishing up. Yeah. You get more, you're right. You're exactly right.
All right, thank you.
You bet, thank you.